Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome. I see some new faces and that's always wonderful. So what we're doing, I'm just gonna close this door. There's an airplane, surprisingly. Come on, see.
Oops.
Drawing today. So this is actually our third class since we've started the Zoom classes, and we're doing 1 week drawing, 1 week watercolor, because so far we know this is what everyone seems to have. As we move along, as you know, some of you become more you know, interested in doing some other materials that we've been doing in our actual class, we can move on. But for now, it's going to be drawing in watercolor. So if you do not have watercolors for next week, Michael's will do curbside if you want, or Amazon, any type of watercolor. You can always email me if you need specifics, but we don't want to make this difficult for anyone. We just kind of use what you have. Pencils, and there's like all sorts, and suddenly you feel that you need a PhD in pencils. Basically, there's going to be two types of pencils. There will have numbers on them on the side. Some of them will say H something, B something. This is basically the regular like school pencil, and it's an in-between. It is called an HB, which stands for hard and bold together, and it's a number 2. So this is kind of your very basic pencil.
Noelle?
Yeah, I don't know why it's not muted.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay. So I'll show you what, for example, a B pencil looks like. It'll have, you might be seeing it like in reverse, but that's what a B pencil is. And this one is called a 6.
Oh.
Okay. So basically the bold pencils will have a darker tone to them. They will also be softer, a little bit creamier. And H pencils will stand for hard. So you're gonna get like a very thin, hard, crisp line. It just really depends on what you like. I actually do not have an H pencil to show you because I'm not a big fan of them. I don't have great eyesight, so it's hard for me to see those thin lines. My preferred pencil is actually a colored pencil, and I use a black or a brown. I like the pigment. I like to be able to see it. And especially when you're using black, you are able to get a true black. When you're using pencil, which is graphite, you're going to get a very dark gray. So you have to be a little bit more mindful with your tones. So today for our jellyfish, what you can also do, and I know some of you already started doing this, earlier when you got the image, is you could use colored pencils. You could use, you know, 2 different colors. With sea creatures, you want to keep it towards the cool colors, greens, purples, and blues, and colors that you would find in the ocean. Even pinks would be pretty. So it would kind of look something like this, where you can mix in the colors. I wouldn't use more than 3 colors, then it turns into a big production. Okay, so especially for the sake of visuals, I am going to use a black colored pencil. I like Prisma pencils, which are kind of a modern colored pencil. They have a softness to them, which is really great, and it doesn't, you know, stress your hand while you're working, and it just kind of glides. So these, and they are sold individual or by the set. I recommend that you buy individual, because that way you pick the colors that you want. And sometimes I will mix both a brown and a black together, and that kind of gives me, you know, almost like a fresco type drawing, which kind of looks cool. I still love how classic art looks. So the first thing we are going to look at is, when you're drawing a subject, the very first thing you want to make sure of is that you are able to fit your entire subject. You don't want to have to squish to fit certain things. So when we're looking at our jellyfish, we have an elongated, almost narrow subject. So a lot of my students ask me, well, you know, I don't know where to start when I'm drawing something. In this case, you really want to start at the top because you want to make sure that you are going to fit it and you want to go directly to your bottom. What you get on the sides is kind of has a lot more freedom because you do have the space. And with something as fluid as this subject, it's nice that we do have that space around so they can flow and really give that feel of them, you know, just kind of flowing in the water and being soft and create some movements. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place my subject, and I'm going to do that very lightly to get a light tone rather than a line. A tone is like a bunch of shading. A line is when you have a hard edge. If you use the side of your pencil, you're going to get a little bit more width, and you're also going to get a softer imprint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the very top, and I'm just going to start doing the dome of my jellyfish. Okay, and what I'm going to do is before I go into further detail, I'm going to go down to the very bottom. The center part is, I think, called the arm, and it's kind of the more condensed part of the jellyfish. So I'm going to put that in, and it seems like it almost groups in together. See, I'm using the side, and I can't wait to work on these, you know, what look like ruffles to me. But for now, I just have to curb that urge, and I'm just going to place what's going to be in there. And you see these two kind of swinging out at the bottom. When you're doing something from a reference, always, you know, use your artistic eye and try to avoid things being symmetrical. I mean, you want things to be balanced, but it would be cool to just have like a little bit of a change in level. So I'm going to keep this one a little bit lower, and this one is a little bit higher, but it kind of angles forward. So this way, you know, I have balance, but it's not like even at both sides. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to just shape that hood a little bit more, that dome, because I know that this is going to fit. I'm not going to have to sacrifice anything and squish, okay? So I am going to, and remember, this doesn't have to be straight. You can angle it. Even the reference itself, you can put it at an angle, and then, you know, have the tentacles and everything kind of swooping to the side. Again, you know, we're so lucky, you know, with references that we can just have by Googling and looking, and you can always take something that's very simple and turn it into something absolutely fantastic. So again, I'm still working with the side. And I am going to just kind of put in these separations here. So now I'm using the tip because I don't think that I really need to be that mindful of the space because I know that it's fitting. Okay, I'm going to give this a little bit more detail in here. And I'm gonna just kind of place the tentacles around. Again, I'm really not looking at them. Some of them do kind of cross, and that's cool. And it seems as they move to in here, they get a little bit more bunched together because you're seeing the back and the front at the same time. So they look like they are bunched. And then I'm going to go to the other side. Okay, again, I'm being mindful of my ends, trying to create some interest. I don't want everything to be, you know, just the same. It'll look static. So I'm gonna go and just kind of like this one that looks like it's kind of sitting by itself over here. And some of them go a little bit more straight than others. And remember, this is not a photograph. This is someone else's drawing. It's someone else's interpretation. And we're just using it as a reference for ourselves. Okay, so I have everything pretty much that I'm going to be working with. I know that everything is in place. Everything is going to fit. Now I'm going to start breaking down these surfaces. So the things that you want to be mindful of are going to be the shading, where you're going to go dark, where you're going to go gentle. Overall, you have a sea creature that is soft, and I'm assuming that it's soft, maybe not, but it just appears to be that way. So, you know, I would kind of keep the darker lines to where you do have shaded areas and when you have edges that need to be pronounced, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shape this dome or hood a little bit more, and I'm gonna start putting in the shading. So I noticed that there's some little angles that I missed the first time. Almost like it just dips in a little bit. And then here, there's almost like a little guide that is showing the shape of it, almost making it look a little bit like a mushroom, okay? So I put in my initial line. I'm gonna go up here. See, the cool thing about using the side is that it already gives you some mask to work with. So when I go over it again, and I'm making this darker, it's not working on the paper by itself. It's actually blending in with what I had before. And I'm using a circular motion, and that way I'm getting smooth shading. I'm not getting any lines, and I am pressing harder on the darker areas, like over here. And then I'm easing off. Sometimes I just like to just drag my pencil to the other side, because that helps me kind of see if I missed anything. I'm going over here. And then I'm just gonna kind of fade it out. Okay, so that's our first part to start the shading. The next part is going to be this arm area in here, and that's where it gets really dark. And not only is it gonna show the perspective of it, it is really going to highlight this, the hood part or the dome part of your jellyfish. And again, when you're first, unless you're finalizing your drawing, you don't want to go with your maximum darkness, the maximum strength. Leave it to later, because as you start detailing, you're also adjusting things, and you want to make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to make things darker or crisper if you want. If you go full on dark from the very beginning, unless you're doing a timed, 2-minute sketch and you have to have everything down there, then you really don't need to do that. So I know that this ruffled area here could look a little confusing. When you come across something like that you can't see the beginning from the end, the best approach is really to draw it that way and just draw what you see. So what I'm going to do is I can very clearly see this part over here, and I'm going to start with that. And I'm going to put that nice shadow under here that's going to pull it out. Okay, so once you have something done, you have something to build up upon it. You're not working in mere vacuum. So for some people like to go to the other side and do what they're seeing on the other side. For me, I feel that I have the beginning of the thread, and I'm just going to pull it. So from over here, I'm seeing they're almost like leaf shaped, almost like these little leaves. So I am doing this part in here, and I'm going to give it a little bit of shading. I also see these lines that are kind of going around, and I'm just going to use some side shading to place it. And here it's getting kind of a little bit darker. Also, what you can do, depending on how much time you have, I try to cover as much as I can throughout the 1-hour session, but this certainly does not mean that this is a 1-hour project. You most likely will need to put just as much time as you did here, but I'm just going to try to show you once you get to the details what you can do. So I'm kind of using like a squiggle line over here. And, you just have to create sometimes your own lines or type or even terminology and just make it fun for yourself. I'm going to go back in here. Okay, so that's going to help me go to this side over here, which almost looks like, like it's a skirt that's flaring out. And I'm seeing these strong lines on the outside of it. I think I went a little too low, but that's okay. All right, so how about I take a look at everyone's sketches and see what you have so far and see if you have any questions? Let me do that. Okay. All right, very cool. Wow, nice. Okay. These are great. Let's see who else I have here. Wonderful. Okay, does anyone have any questions so far? Can you raise your hand if you have a question or?
Yeah, Noelle, I guess I was muted. Since I already made this one yesterday, I'm gonna try to make another drawing with the color.
Uh-huh.
So just another, I just found another drawing. And
okay.
With the color.
Yeah, I can see traces of it. I can see that it's blue or aqua or.
Aqua, yeah. I'm gonna make it blue, aqua, and purple.
Okay.
Navy, purple, and aqua.
Okay, so you have to decide which one of these colors is going to take the value of black, which one is going to be the darkest one, and you can use it. So when you're using colored pencils, just make sure that you have one of them that will give you like
the navy would be the
okay.
The navy would be the darkest part, like the middle.
Do you have the one that you already did? Do you have that next to you?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I don't know if you can see.
Okay. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Lucia. that looks great. That's absolutely beautiful. I can't wait to see what
it was so daunting. I'm thinking it's worse than roses. But then I got into it, so.
Yeah, that's great. I think once we have it sketched out, I think it becomes less intimidating. Right. Because I think, just all that's going on in the middle can like throw us off a little bit. You think, oh, that's going to take 3 days to do that detail.
Those tentacles are the worst part because there's so many of them. And I thought to myself, I'll never get it untangled. So after I did the skirt, I kind of gave the best shot what I can see, and the rest I just leave it to imagination.
Okay, and also remember when you're drawing from a reference, you don't have to include anything. Sometimes you can give the illusion of something being there. So, for example, I have here the beginning, just the sketch part of the tentacles. Yes.
I think Tom had a question.
Okay, sorry. Let me go back. I can't see everyone at the same time. Hey, Tom.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. This is my first time doing this.
Yes.
So I'm afraid my drawing looks a little bit like a Halloween mask.
Well, let's see it. Halloween masks are cool. What are you talking about?
I looked at it once before.
Okay, I think that's a great start.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, well, you have to remember, Tom, that, it takes a lot of steps and a lot of building to get something to where you want it to be. And, the most important thing about drawing is observation and being able to see lines and see shading and see darkened lights and see tones. And once you start really seeing those and paying attention to them, it all starts coming together. I mean, it's kind of that, that drawstringing everything together comes with practice. But for anyone who's just starting, I don't know if you're just starting or just starting, joining us, but, observation.
Just started, not join. I'm joining.
Well, that's fantastic. I don't know why people think that drawing is so easy that, you're supposed to pick up a pencil and, do a Renaissance drawing. It takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of layering. And, one of my favorite things to really remind everyone is that it's going to get a little ugly before it gets pretty. And you just have to stick with it and realize that the more layers you are doing, you know, thoughtful layers that are really adding value to your drawing, it's going to start coming together. It's about all those elements coming together. I think your style is great. Your proportions are good. And, you know, just keep being mindful of what you're putting into the drawing. Yes.
Noelle, my printer was losing ink. So if you can see this, it had kind of a pink tone throughout it. I don't know if you can see that. And I thought it came out really cool with the little pink in it.
Yeah, I mean, I love
rather than the aqua color, kind of the black with pink.
I think that would be a great option to use the pink. And again, regarding the image that we send you, Melissa tries to put it up during class. And, you know, honestly, I'm not a fan of printing because also, you know, we're working from web images unless I'm going to put them in a very special program to get them to fit dimensions. They're hard to print, and color ink can be expensive if we're printing out color. So yeah, there's the image. So I highly recommend that you have it, you know, on another device if possible. I really think that that's the best way you can do it.
Well, we put new ink in.
Okay. I always have, the printer is not my friend, so I had to really reduce the size of it to get it to look good. Anyone else want to show what they're doing? Jerry? Oh, Susanna, that's beautiful. That ruffle is fantastic. Okay, nice job, Jerry. Kina and Shadden, let's see. These are my nieces. Shadden, I can't see yours. Can you just move it to the screen a little bit closer? That looks great. Okay, anyone else have any questions, or should we move on to the next steps? Everyone good? Carol, that looks good. Okay, all right, so we are going to continue. Am I back? Oh. I have to get my view back. Okay. All right, so we are back. All right, so, you know, another thing, even for me doing this class, it's good to step away from what you're doing for a few minutes and see what you've done. You know, of course, before I do this, I try to do some sketches and kind of see what areas of trouble we might have, and that way I can talk about them and we can confront them before they actually become scary to us. So I feel that I have accomplished quite a bit over here. So I'm going to go back to the other side. Now, it's always a good idea when you are moving to another side, is kind of just go beyond that area a little bit, whether it's to the top or to the bottom. And that just helps keep everything together. It stays cohesive. And that way you can also see if you've overlooked something. And I'm already seeing that this over here is an area that I really like. I like the separations that I'm seeing, and it's going to give me some fun contrast to work with. So I see this one tentacle here that looks very clear. So I'm going a little bit darker. And what I'm going to do is I am going to shade around it. And when you're first shading, just do any method that, you know, seems comfortable and fast for you. So see, this has created a visual interest in my jellyfish, and it gave some contrast. And what you want to do in your drawing or in your painting is you always want to create different elements. You know, you want to think of the viewer of not being bored, like, oh, look, there's some black and white. There's some, you know, curved lines over here. There's, you know, nobody's really going to look at it that way, but it really does make your piece more interesting, and it also makes it more fun to you when you're working. So I am going to just kind of continue that line a little bit and just fade it out. And I'm going to go back in here. So I see that there's almost like this area that I created here is a little bit off center. So I'm going to use that as being my separating area. And I'm going to start curving these a little bit and give them a little bit more shape. Now, the one thing you don't want to do is say, oh, okay, these are just like wavy lines and just put them in. You want to look at your source, at your reference, to make sure that you don't just start doing like a continuous scallop, and you want to make sure that they are in perspective, because the ones that are going towards the back, like over here, they are going to appear smaller because they are moving away from you. See, they are getting bigger. And some of them are kind of going further in to the dome. Of course, because I can't help myself, I'm seeing another one of those tentacles kind of just having that contrast element. And I think that's just fun to work with. And again, there's two of them. I'm just going to do one because, you know, you just have to edit what you're doing. Okay, there's another one here. And this one is kind of a fun one because it's angling in. And you want to think of these as, you know, moving. So make sure that they are loose. And then again, these scallops kind of start getting a little bit. And while I'm here, I'm just going to do a little bit of just refining everything. Okay, so I think now it's time to work on the arm a little bit more. And I am going to start from over here. And I can see, okay, I am seeing, and also to me, the right side was clearer in the beginning, but now that I've drawn that and I got a little comfortable with the shape and I have references to it in my head, what it looks like, I can relate it to something, the other side is going to be a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is just put in kind of the lines, the main lines that I'm seeing. It almost looks like, you know, like a layered skirt to me. And it's getting narrower as it goes down. Okay. Now I'm going to move to the other side. Don't put too much work into one area before you have everything that you need. Here we have actually part of the arm we did not before. And with most things that I do, tend to be more big picture. I have absolutely no desire to draw every single line, every single tentacle that's in there. I'm taking the key ones that help form the jellyfish and the overall idea. And then that's when your personality and your signature comes in, is, you know, highlighting the things that you do. See, and then there are some people that do every single part, and I'm blown away that they can. I know that personally, I don't think that I could, unless it's a face and it's a commission and I have to do it. So, okay, so I'm gonna go back here. Okay. All right. There's another one in here, and I think that's all I'm going to do in terms of how many of these ruffles I'm going to put in. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a little bit of shading. Before I do that, I'm just going to kind of emphasize some of the tentacles around, because it almost looks like they have started to fade out. So again, I'm going back here, and what I'm doing at the same time is I'm going back and just defining the shape a little bit more if you feel that it needs it. I always feel that one extra step doesn't hurt. I'm going to soften the edges a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go with some of these, and feel free to just just give them a little bit more movement. I tend to like drama in my art pieces, and I will do something that someone might tell me, well, a jellyfish doesn't really do that with their tentacle, but I like it. So just feel free. You could even do some that maybe are more straight or have a little bit of texture to them. Make it your own. Have fun with it. So I'm just going over with another line just to give it some, yeah. I'm gonna have this one kind of overlap. And overlapping is one of the really cool things to do in art. Once you realize how to do it, and once you kind of keep track of your tangles, it looks very impressive in an art piece. And people say, wow, how did you do that? So you do it carefully and thoughtfully and make sure that you just keep track of your line. So see, these two have overlapped now. And what I'm going to do for an extra step to really make this look impressive is the one under, I'm just going to make a little bit darker. See, so it actually looks like they're in front of each other. So darkening the one under, which was just a little step to do, just really helped bring that out. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more, and some of them like really long. Very cool. I'm going to go back. See, again, before I forget, I have to go back and see where it started. And again, your shading or any method that you're doing to darken something, it doesn't have to be consistent all the way through. It doesn't have to be the same thickness or darkness. And actually, the more variation you do, given that if it's a dark area, you have to stay dark. If it's a light area, you have to stay light. It will give it a little bit more interest. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to darken some, like just right before it curves, and that helps give it a little bit of extra dimension. You see how it just makes it kind of pop a little bit. So I'm going to go now over here and see, try to, treat your drawing equally. Different parts get jealous. Make sure that you go visit all the other parts and tell them how beautiful they are. And this is very important when you're doing something like a portrait, because if you work, for an hour on one eye and then you go to the other eye, they're going to look like they belong to two different people. So you want to make sure that you almost work in a circular motion around your drawing. Okay. So these over here, and actually where they come out of the dome, it's almost like a little hole there. And so I'm going to have an overlap here. And then I'm going to have it go up. So again, I'm going to go back to it. Okay. I'm going to go in here. I just saw something. And sometimes I'll be working and then I'll notice something that needs a little bit more attention. Okay, I need to sharpen my pencil. So let's see what everyone has so far. All right. Oh, wow. Melissa, our admin is good, I have to say. Jerry, that looks really nice. Looks good. Sharon, that looks good. Are you going to add pink to it later? Okay. All right, but I can't see them now.
If you switch to gallery view, you should be able to.
I am on gallery view, but this came up.
Want me to stop sharing it?
No, I'm going to do it on another one.
Okay.
I'm going to do this again, and because, I thought it would all just be black and white. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's a fun subject. I mean, especially those of you that want to continue working more, you know, make a series of it, and they don't have to be that big, you know, do one in ink, do one in watercolor, do one in, you know, different colored pencils. I think it's a really fun subject, and it has so much room for creativity. Tom, how are we doing? That looks good.
That does.
That really, that's, I can't believe you haven't done this before. That's really good. Kina, Sheldon? Wow, that's awesome. And I love how different they look. That is so cool. Susanna, how are we doing? Let's see. Susanna? Very nice, really good. And I like that most of you are working on large paper. I think, Phyllis, I haven't seen yours. Are you hiding it? I think everybody froze. Let me see. Okay, nice. That dark shading is really cool. Okay, let's see, who else do we have? Carol, how are you doing? Very nice. Yeah, I mean, I imagine that you would do well on this one because it has almost like figurative elements, you know? Yeah, it's almost like you can see. And Lucia, how's it going?
We can see.
Okay, very nice. Nuera, I haven't seen yours. Nuera, where's yours? Wow, that's awesome. See, everybody's gonna have art for their walls. How cool is this? Okay, did I see everyone? Does anyone have any questions? Okay, because I'm gonna show you something cool next. Okay. All right, let's go back. Okay, all right. And I forgot to sharpen my pencil, so. Quick. Again, like I showed you last time, I sharpen both ends because, or I will have more than one of the same pencil, because if I'm on a roll, I do not want to be without a nice big tip to work with. Okay, so one thing I see here, I don't know if it's part of the printer, part of how they did the drawing, I think it would be fun to create some texture on this. So I'm gonna kind of work with these little dots, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do some kind of irregular circles, little circles, just kind of almost like squiggles, but a little bit with a more closed end to them. And also, especially if you add them in the dark areas, it's going to create a little bit more of a darker area there. So it's kind of like a squiggle, but I'm just kind of closing some of them in, okay? So that's just giving it a little bit of texture. You don't have to do it everywhere. And also another thing you can do is you can do some kind of stippling, you know, just where you're doing some little dots. And you could do a combination of both. Because I'm working at an angle, I think this area here is kind of, has not gotten much attention, okay? So I'm gonna work in this shadow a little bit over here. Almost looks like a mouse now. It is getting darker over here. I'm just going to do my little kind of squiggles with some of them ending up being circles. And, you know, sometimes it's really great to just look at your subject and not look at your drawing and just let your hand do the work, because it'll be so much more spontaneous. So over here, I'm tangling my lines a little bit more, and I'm totally looking at the subject, and I'm not looking really at my drawing. Okay, so it really gave it some nice texture. What I'm going to do so that this doesn't look like it's separating the two parts, I'm just going to go with a soft shade over here. Again, I'm using a circular motion. And I'm going to pull it down here, and I'm going to start going down here and working a little bit more on those lovely layered skirts. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm looking at these little zigzags here, so I'm going to start with them. Okay. I'm going to give it a little bit of shading. And this becomes an area that, you know, you can really go with the maximum strength of your pencil and really go dark. And what I'm going to do is I'm going around these lines, but I'm kind of letting them go out a little bit, and I just feel that it almost gives it like a slight, you know, like vibration, like it's moving. I'm not doing it everywhere, but I think it will. Okay. And then, you know, you can pick certain parts to just work on. You don't have to include everything in there. And what I'm doing is where they kind of layer, I'm just going a little bit darker underneath, you know, the layers so that you can see that they are kind of folding onto each other. I'm going to go here and just break up this area a little bit. There's some that are coming through here. Okay, it doesn't come down this far, but I think it's kind of cool to just have it in that space. Okay, I'm going to work a little bit over here. And again, I'm kind of going to do that squiggle. I'm going kind of a little bit darker. And again, where you have an overlap. And the thing is to get these right, the best way is to really forget what they are and just look at the outlines and look at the negative space. I mean, these kind of look like triangles that are kind of, you know, just kind of folding onto one another. So you've got this triangle, and then you've got this triangle under, and then you've got this triangle under. So just, to me, the easiest way to draw something, if it's a little unclear, is try to relate it to a shape. Give it some shading. Again, over here is kind of an area where it's overlapping. So I'm just going to go darker underneath. Anytime you have a new one kind of starting up, see, once I just put that dark, I mean, it just pops. So I'm actually looking over here now. That kind of caught my eye, and I feel that that certainly could go a little bit darker. And then over here, there's some dark ones as well. And I even think up here, I can go darker. And then just kind of fade them out. You don't want to, if you're shading a dark area, you don't want to stop it suddenly. It'll look very static. So make sure that you do drag your lines a little bit. Okay, I think some of these need a little bit of attention. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I think we will have everything that we want in here. Again, you know, just the only thing is keep track.
Noel, can you hear me?
Can I? I didn't quite. Okay. You know, I'm just adding my own little touches. I think if I had more time, I would probably work on this one a little bit more. And I think I'll just really quickly shade it before I get your comments and questions. And again, see, I've got kind of this stretch out triangle. And then this one is lighter because it's over it. And just at the edges where it starts meeting the other one, I'm going a little bit darker. I mean, it's all about manipulating, you know, these dark and light areas. And with more practice, your eye will start recognizing them pretty quickly, and you will know what to do. I don't like that these almost are all at the same level, so I'm going to take this one over here. Just make it a little bit longer.
Well, I have a question. Do you use this one color only? I can't tell.
Yes, yes, I'm just using the black.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this pretty much concludes this draw along. I want to hear what you think, and again, just that was a good question. Was this just one color? Yes, it is. I mentioned sometimes that I would, you know, put in two colors. I'm just kind of going to show you what it would look like if I added the brown. You know, when you add another color, it's going to take it from being a sketch to being more of a drawing. You can see it's just giving it a little bit more warmth. So I'm having like cool and warm areas when I'm adding the color, because the brown, you know, does have a little bit of warmth, a little bit of red in it. So hopefully you will work on this a little bit more, because I think these little details are really fun to do. Really fun. I could just do these for hours. And let's take a look at what everyone has done. And sometimes I have to scroll back and forth. So if you raise your hand and I didn't get your question, just do a little shout out so I can hear you. Any questions? Wow, that's Chad, and that looks amazing. Very cool. Okay, Tom. I can't hear you. I think. Tom? I think they're muted, Melissa.
I'm not.
Okay, hear you now. Yeah.
What is the black pencil that you use?
What is the black pencil I'm using?
Yes.
Yeah, it's called a Prisma pencil.
It's okay. Oh,
it's a colored pencil. It's a colored pencil that is really soft. It's available. If you just email me, I'll email you links to where to get them. They do have them at and at Michael's. So they really give a lot of richness of color, and they're soft. They're soft. So for those of Anyone else? Let me see. Anyone else have a question? Hi, Alina. That looks great. Very cool. Awesome. Love it. Jerry, that's wonderful. And I'm very proud that you didn't go dark from the beginning. Andre, how's audio today?
Can we show you what we did?
Yes, please. Show me.
I don't know.
Yeah, just lift it up, kind of in front of your face.
I don't know how to do it.
Okay. You don't need to change anything. Just put it like in front of your face, like where your face is. Just kind of do it like this.
Hold the paper up, not the computer.
This? Yes, I can see it. Yes.
There you go.
Oh, beautiful, Andre.
I
That
can't.
is absolutely beautiful. Especially the arm part and the ruffles. That looks great. That looks great.
Thank you.
Noera, let me see yours. Very cool. Did you rub it, or is that all shading?
Yeah.
It's all shading. Great. Jerry, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say.
Melissa, that's wonderful.
Well, forget it. Not important.
Okay. Okay. Carol? Beautiful. These really look pretty. I mean, I think it's just such a beautiful subject to also work with. Kina, can I see yours? Very cool. Very cool. I would say they need another hour, honestly, just to get everything and not, you're also working on my, at my pace, and, it's not a lot of time to kind of play around with things. Susanna, did I see yours?
It's also like Zoom etiquette because people can hear you the whole
Gorgeous. These are beautiful. And you look extra pretty today, Susanna. You're so glamorous. You always look beautiful. It's so nice. It's so nice to see everyone. Did I get everyone? Does anyone have any questions? You can always email me if you have any questions, and or if you want to show me what you've been working on. But honestly, if you really want to do more work, make a series out of this and just Google, some images just for reference. You could even combine 2 images together. Melissa, can I see yours? That's cool. I bet your kids are going to like that. Something relatable, maybe. I don't know. You can put a smiley face.
I have a question. Melissa?
Yes.
How do I scroll down? I'm using my iPad Pro, but I can't. The image goes if I try to scroll down. Any hints?
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to scroll down to see the other.
You have to scroll to the side, Mom. Right to the side.
Oh, to the side.
You do gallery, you can see everybody.
No, I have a gallery view, but I don't have. Now I can see you. Hi,
Yeah.
Carol.
It doesn't make sense, I know, but that's how it is.
You talked about Susanna being dressed up. I was so excited. I got to go to the doctor yesterday. Well, I got to wear regular clothes.
Yeah,
I know. And the nurse said, "Oh, you look so nice." She said, "You should see how most people come."
I know. My husband went to the office for a little bit, and he felt like, well, wearing shoes feels so weird. So,
Noelle?
Yes.
So on the sunflowers, I looked up on the computer some pictures of people drawing sunflowers rather than just a photograph, because I was having a hard time with the petals. So I did it again, and I got some brown and olive paint and all that. And then I came up with that one. Well, the center is too big, and I didn't like the little petals. So I worked on it again and then got that with the petals. And if you notice, the center is like 3 or 4 different colors.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little more realistic. I mean, it's still not great. It's very, just amateur, but I mean.
No, I will tell you, a sunflower, even, starting a sunflower is easy, but actually finalizing the detail is a lot more work than it looks. Anytime you have petals, or you have, like a pineapple, you have the texture, or a pine cone, you have a lot of elements that need to come together as one, and you don't have to draw every single one of them. You're going to have to find a method that it appears that you have all of them. And what I can see, of course, I'm looking at a tiny screen, is I feel that if you had a little bit more of a variety of yellow in the petals, like the ones next to each other, think of doing them 3 different, you know, yellows, and that way each one will show.
Well, actually, I did, but the problem is the real pale yellow you can't really see.
Yeah, maybe just mix a little bit of color to it.
On this one, I added color, but it was the wrong color, and I was using the wrong brush. I mean, with the watercolors, it's also a matter for me, being so inexperienced, of just experimenting with the different brushes to see the different effects you get. You know?
That's true, and then you start, you know, you'll find the ones that you like personally. And I think what you've done with trying the 2 different paintings and trying all the brushes, I mean, that's very valuable because you will start knowing more about the process. Watercolors tend to be technical, and you just start knowing with more practice how much water to put, what colors are going to look like, and also what colors are going to look like next to each other, because sometimes you think you have the right color and then you put it up against another color and it completely changes it. Like when you're trying to put an outfit together, you know, it's like, oh, that doesn't look right. You know, sometimes a white shirt might look, you know, beige if you're wearing black with it, or it might look, you know, so colors do change according to what's next to them. But next week we're going to do watercolor, and I'm going to talk about a lot of new things that, I mean, I want everyone to, especially the ones that have just joined, to really feel that you are, you know, getting some information that will help you, but also realize it is part of the process. I mean, most of the group here has been, well, we've been doing it for 4 years, I think, meeting up once a week. So it does take practice. Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Also, I read a little note that I got some art supplies at Target that had real quality ones. And then Michael's you can pick up, but you can also go in there.
Yeah, you can. I mean, a lot of people are opting not to, and you know, I think that's a personal choice. So,
but I mean, you know, for me, buying all this stuff, I wanted to see it. I didn't want to.
I know. I agree with you. I agree with you. But you know, we're just going to do the best we can for now. Anyone else? Any comments? Any questions before we go?
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, Noelle. Great lesson.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. It's nice to meet you, Tom. Hopefully you'll join us again next week.
I will.
And also, if you have any ideas or anything that you would like to work on other than roses, let me know. For those of you that have never been to our class, we have a rose joke. They are terrified of roses.
We don't.
They think that every time I bring them in, I'm trying to torture them. But you know, especially if we're gonna do watercolors, you gotta do roses. So, yeah,
It's funny.
All right, everyone. This was so nice to see your beautiful faces.
Bye.
Oh,
Noelle.
Hi, Noelle. Thank you.
That's my son. Hold on, there's Kina. And there's
Bye, Tina.
There's Shannon. And these are my friends. There's Kat.
Bye-bye.
You know a lot of my friends. I told him he could join us on Zoom from his room, but he didn't.
So I had work.
You did. And he's going to St. Francis School next year. We're very excited.
Oh, très bien.
All right, everyone. See you next week. Email me if you have any questions.
Bye.